Welcome, everybody, to the Bassfug Podcast. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, Dr. Tom Prichard, all the way. Prichard. Sorry, it's my Canadian accent.
Well, actually, no. It's good, man. It's Prichard. It's like Richard with a P. You got
Prichard
it good.
With a P.
Okay.
From Knoxville, Tennessee. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm doing great this morning. It's a little nippy in the air, but I mean, it's that time of year, so we're doing great, man.
Now, I'm just going to give a disclaimer to the fans. I know this is a music production podcast, and why would we have I would say, a wrestling legend on the program today? And I wanted to get a different perspective, because when you're up on stage, a lot of professional wrestling, I feel like, is theatrics. I think maybe not all of it, but I think there's a lot of theatrics involved, and also a lot of crowd psychology, having to deal with a crowd. You hear these crazy stories back in the 80s and the 90s of crowds pulling knives on wrestlers and stuff like this, really getting involved with what they're seeing. So I really wanted to ask you questions about how you go out and you entertain a crowd. How do you keep a crowd, just what you do, and I think that's so relevant to music. There are guys out there that I feel like if they took a page from the book of professional wrestling, their entire act would just skyrocket by 40%. I think we've all gone to a bar and seen a band that we thought was talented, but they just didn't have that charisma to kind of hook the people that were there. Has that ever happened to you, Dr. Tom?
Well, yeah, I think, when you talk about guys taking a page out of professional wrestling, one of the greatest, if not the greatest frontman ever in rock and roll, in my opinion, who has no shame these days. You can't embarrass him. I think he might even be oblivious, is David Lee Roth. He took a note out of the professional wrestling book and applied it on stage, man. He could do kicks. He could do a rap. He could cut a promo. I'm not saying he was the greatest singer, but I'm saying he was one of the greatest performers and frontmen of all time, in my opinion. And I've seen Dave a couple times in concert, not for the music. Don't get me wrong. I go for the showmanship. I go for the theatrics. I go for the guys who go out and, I saw Dave a couple times, and he did the same shtick throughout his concert. He'll be walking up and down talking, all of a sudden look down and say, "Hey, don't throw that at me, man. I'll come down there and F your girlfriend." And the crowd would pop, and he'd go, "Whoa, we got a rowdy crowd here tonight," and launch into another song. So, I mean, it's all a work. It's showbiz, and you have to take that into account. I mean, by the way you dress, the way you walk, the way you talk, and not just on stage, but backstage too, because I think it prepares you for the time you go out on stage. Yeah. You don't have to switch gears, man. You're already in gear. You just turn up the volume. So it's happened to, I think, everybody who's ever stepped on a stage or in a ring or on a ball field, wherever you want to call it, man. We're all in the entertainment business, and this is something that everybody has to keep in mind. College football is entertainment. People want to see a great game. The NFL, it is, yes, it's sports, but WWE coined the phrase sports entertainment, but football is sports entertainment. Baseball, anything you're paying to see is entertainment. And you need great players on the field, in the ring, and on the stage playing a guitar, man. I mean, yeah. Kiss took their inspiration from comic books and just had creativities that goes with holds true with every genre, in my opinion.
It's funny, you touched on a couple of things. One of them, we're talking about the stage, and a lot of professional wrestling events happen on the same stages that David Lee Roth or same arenas they performed at. I guess the first question I'll ask is what's it like in your mind? Let's say you're playing, I'm from Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada, very small town. What's the difference between playing like a Madison Square Garden and a small town? I know when you're a band, if no one shows up at your show, some people still go 100%. Other people, they might not even show up. I'm curious if there's a difference between the small shows, the small venues, and the big venues. I imagine one of the main differences is anxiety. I couldn't imagine performing in front of so many people under all those spotlights where, if you're performing music, if you screw up, you could kind of move on. But, if you could get seriously injured. And if you're injured in front of 10, 20,000 people or something like that, what's that like?
Well, it's happened before, and it happened with a match I watched not too long ago with the British Bulldogs, I think, against Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake. They did a spot where Dynamite Kid was climbing to the top rope, and this was for WrestleMania, like WrestleMania 4 or 5, I'm not sure which now. But the spot was, I believe, Greg Valentine is going to hit the rope, and Dynamite's going to take this bump from the top rope all the way to the floor. And he hurt himself. That's where the major back problem came in. So I think, first of all, just to answer the basic question, whether it's a room full of 15 people or 15,000, it's attitude, it's confidence, it's having that gravitas to go out there, and no matter who's in the room, no matter what's there. And I tell our guys at JPWA this all the time: you never know who's watching. You never know who might be filming and send it to somebody who might show it to somebody else. And there's that chain of command that goes on down the line. Yeah. Where somebody will take a look at that particular band or that particular match and say, hey, we got to have this guy, or this guy has potential, or this band has potential, or pick and choose. And that's the great part, I think, about not just professional wrestling, but music in general, because look, I've seen a lot of concerts in my day too, and I've seen the guys like Steven Tyler is another great frontman in my opinion. He's in his 70s and still doing kip-ups and athletic, and I've never seen Aerosmith dog it, and I've seen them 5 times in concert. So it's the attitude, it's the showmanship. It's the performer's ego that every performer must have. You talk about going in spotlights and being all freaked out and stuff. Well, yeah, but that also is the lifeblood of a lot of guys like David Lee Roth and Steven Tyler and people who perform. So, you can play a guitar, stand up there and sing a song. But if you're playing a guitar and you're up there and living that song, there's a difference. And it's the same thing with professional wrestling. You go out there, you can do moves, but it's how you do them, and it's how you go out there and present it. Do you believe it to make everybody else believe it? Yeah. Again, the Kid Rock quote, if it looks good, you'll see it. If it sounds good, you'll hear it. If it's marketed right, you'll buy it. But if it's real, then you'll feel it. And that's what I think all performers are going after. You get that real, that authenticity when they walk out on stage.
Yeah, that's do you believe it? That's a really good thing to keep in mind, I think, when you're performing. You're talking about attitude and confidence. How, when you're for people that don't know, JPWA is Dr. Prichard's school that he's running. How do you teach someone, who walks in, who's like a newbie? How do you teach them attitude and confidence? Because that's not something that you could just learn, right?
Right.
How do you train them? How would you tell a new guy, hey, look, we're playing the show. We got this big break. You're going to be in front of 100,000 people tomorrow night. Like, what do you do to prepare this person?
You can talk about experience, but you can't give someone experience. The only way to do it is to do it. There's a difference between in-ring shape and cardio shape. You cannot duplicate it unless you're in the ring. You can't duplicate what it's like to play in front of 20,000 people unless you finally do it. And it takes that step. Was it scary? Of course. Do you have anxiety? Sure. You wouldn't be human if you didn't. But if you have that desire inside, that burning fire, that excitement, that when somebody asks you why you have to do this, or what is it, why do you think you can do this, the answer usually comes back is because I can't give you an answer. It's just I have to do it. It's like, how does a bird fly, or how do you find creativity? Yeah. I don't know. They just do. And those are the kind of performers that stand out. And I think anybody who's ever stepped on a stage has wanted that adulation from a crowd, has wanted that notoriety and acceptance, so to speak, and that's where the ego comes in. Are there great people out there who understand that with great power comes great responsibility? You know, if you can influence people and do things, well, sure there are. There's some really good people out there, but at the same time, the only way to learn how to be yourself in front of people and in front of a crowd is to get used to it. We talk about cutting promos. I talk about interviews and how do you present yourself. It's not a comfortable feeling for the first time getting on camera or speaking into a microphone because you're not sure how you're going to be received. Well, let me take this back. A lot of people aren't sure how they're going to be received. So you have to just do it. And do we all start out and become an overnight success? Hell no. Most overnight success take 10 years. So there is no such thing, in other words. But you can talk about confidence. You can talk about having faith in yourself, same thing. But having that belief and going out there, man, again, I point to David Lee Roth. God almighty, I never thought he was going to be a great singer, although I like his songs. I like you screaming and yelling. I like the showmanship. Yeah. But Dave has become a parody of himself, and he's fine with it, it seems like. He's retired now. But does anybody ever really retire in show business? I think not. No. So how do you tell somebody to do it? You explain it to them, and you say, this is what you must find. Fake it till you make it. Believe it till you believe it. And keep believing it, and go out there, and you're not gonna win over everybody. You know, you got to please yourself sometimes, and have faith that what you're doing is going to get over, because you're going to hear no more times than you hear yes. You're going to hear, oh, that sucks, a lot more before you hear, oh, hey, you're pretty good. Yeah. And again, pointing to Kiss when they first started, I remember. God, Gene Simmons is another great interview. So is Paul Stanley, because they talk about the struggles and they talk about the bad reviews and talk about the music critics who said these guys won't be around for 4 months. And here they are almost 50 years later. Yeah. So, you know, how do you tell somebody that, or how do you teach somebody that? You don't. They have to find that. They've got to go out and perform. They've got to fail. They got to learn how to lose to know how to win. Again, quoting Steven Tyler, the great poet we all know. Hey. But go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm just, because you're talking about going out and having people tell you like you suck and all this, and I don't know if I should say their name or whatever, but like about 20 years ago, there was in an indie circuit, as it's called for the listeners, I went to like a local wrestling show, and there was this guy we used to kind of pick on, we used to scream at, right? And anyways, he ended up becoming like, I think the WWF champion or something later on. Is Bobby Roode? What was his name? So this guy was in, I forget the name of the league, but yeah, it was really crazy because I never even knew. When we left, it was kind of, you know, we went there, had fun, and then I forgot about it. And a few years later, my friend's like, "Hey, remember that show we were at? Well, that guy is like a really big deal now." And that's awesome. You know, that's like what I think happens to a lot of bands. You know, like a guy is playing the same, you know, show that's like, you know, 5 people or whatever at like the local dive bar, and then all of a sudden they're playing Madison Square Garden, touring the world or whatever.
Yeah. But if I could just touch on that for a second, because the people, not everybody, but a lot of the people who get into professional wrestling get in for the love of the game, for the love of the business, for the love of what we're doing in the ring. I think the same thing starts out with a lot of musicians. You love to play a guitar, you love to sing, or whatever your instrument is. Yeah. You're not thinking about the money at the time. You're not thinking about the huge crowds. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. But at the same time, what you're doing it for is because you enjoy it and you have a passion for it. And if you have a passion for something like that, whether it's a sport or music, whatever it may be, all my brothers, with the exception, I have 4 brothers, and Bruce and I are the only ones in professional wrestling. But my other brothers all played guitar, all sang, all had bands growing up. And my older brother Ken was playing in coffee shops up until 4 years ago. Just going down, man. He was living in Rio Doce, New Mexico. And they would go down to this place where they would have dinner sometimes and had a little stage, and him and his friend would get up and just play guitar and sing.
Yeah.
Were they looking to go to MSG? No, man. They were just looking to have fun and have the passion. And I don't think
we all go to MSG. I was trying to paint a Walt Disney thing there. I think most of us don't make it there.
I get it. Yeah. I get it. But you see, here's the thing. When I started wrestling, I was always told I was too small. My goal was just to wrestle in the Sam Houston Coliseum and travel around the world. I never even thought about going to Madison Square Garden. This is where life kind of throws your curve. Never. Because Madison Square Garden, New York, there was the land of the giants. And eventually, I wrestled in Madison Square Garden. And we lost the World Tag Team Championship in Madison Square Garden. Now, once again, it's showbiz, and it's not that great of an accomplishment. But the accomplishment was just arriving, just going to the building, and all of a sudden you walk out and you say, this is the world's most famous arena. And all it is an old building with this legacy. Yeah. Yeah. But it was those moments where you're thinking, I'll never be here, but you're there. So.
Yeah. No, sorry. It's just the culture that made it. It could be in any building, you know. Yeah. It could, there's the famous CBGB's, which is just a small place, but it was the people that performed there that made that. That's kind of that's kind of incredible. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about the importance of the entrance themes. Now, I'm pretty sure that it's pretty standard, like in all the federations, as they're called, that the wrestlers come out to a theme. I'm wondering if you put any importance on that, if you think that's an important part, or if that's just kind of, because we all know the famous themes, right? I think the most famous one that kind of comes to mind is the Stone Cold one, the glass breaks, and it just. It anchors him to that song, and I think especially in the WWF there was so many songs. I think the guy who was writing all those, I think it was
Jim Johnson.
Jim Johnson, yeah.
Yes.
And some of these themes, it's crazy how it fits the gimmicks, as they're called, for the people that aren't familiar with wrestling. How important do you feel like those themes are?
God,
even yours in because I think your character was like sort of an 80s kind of workout kind of thing, right?
No, that wasn't my character at all. That was something that was given to me, and I didn't feel that whatsoever. And that's a whole different deal, man. Because that's a whole story in itself. But the music, the setting, the ambiance is so important. The Undertaker had such a great theme. It is show business. It's sports entertainment, and even if you're not a wrestling fan, when the glass broke and this Stone Cold Steve Austin persona came out, that was authentic. That was Steve being Steve with the volume turned up. And that sets the mood. That sets the tempo. As soon as the glass broke, people knew and they popped. When the Undertaker, the bell rang. Hang on. Oh, it is a nippy day here, and I think my nose is running.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Undertaker, again, if you're a switch or someone wants to show you why they're into wrestling, and you have the Undertaker's theme from the 90s, and you watch this guy come out and you're going, oh my God, this is this huge guy walking out, and he's got this smoke and fog and lights and all the bells and whistles and the great music, and it just fits. Yeah, it all comes together. There was music back with long before this even. This is not a new phenomenon. Gorgeous George came out to music. A lot of guys came out to music back in the day. But what I say, a lot of guys, there were a couple. Then the Freebird started in the 80s with Freebird, Leonard Skinner. And when the music hit, they let it play for a little bit. And the anticipation was there. And when Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy came to the ring, They had these robes, they had the sequins, they had the look, they were stars. And, you talk about people pulling knives on the guys earlier. Michael Hayes had a gun pulled on him in New Orleans for real, man, because they had blinded the junkyard dog with the Freebird hair cream, and the dog's wife was having a baby. He would never get to see his child. He's completely blind.
Wow.
They kept him off the cards in his house so nobody could see him around town. Wrestling was huge in Louisiana, and there was some great angles and some great talent back then. And this was the extreme that everybody went to. So even though the majority of people understood wrestling was show business from day one. But to the extremes, the old-time promoters would take it, they protected their business better then than anybody does now, because everybody's so smart. We have the internet. You can find out anything all the time, and anytime. But the music, the setting, and even the culture of the promotion or the fan base that was in that area, because it was regional wrestling back in the early days up until about late 80s and 90s when Vince took over everything. That was a huge part of the presentation. You had usually a 2.5 hour show, and the guys knew what to do to get the reaction. It was authentic, and the music they picked had to fit them. Now you have, because of copyrights and things like this and originality, you have songs written specifically for that talent.
Yeah.
So, it's certainly a huge part of the presentation, huge part of the production.
I think in a lot of ways I like when they have their own theme. I think we know there's other instances where, like you were mentioning, where they're using like known songs. But I feel like when you have the theme custom tailored to the whole persona, it really adds to it. But I'm not sure if that's how you feel about that, because I got to say this. I mean, you certainly want something that's customized to you. When you were talking about, I was doing the Body Dono thing, the exercise thing. No, that was sorry. That's one of many accomplishments.
I was doing that, but it was it was this or nothing. And so before even doing the other gig we did with the Heavenly Bodies in WWE, you have to have that personalization with your music to get people to react. And that's 100% true. On the independents, where you're not being filmed and not putting on YouTube, you can use Wanted Dead or Alive or Stranglehold or whatever it may be. That was before the copyrights and stuff came in, and before it became, again, with the internet and everybody finding out about it. But yeah, I agree 100%. It when you have a personalized theme, you do condition and you educate your audience and fan base to when you're coming out. They know when that music hits who's coming out, and that's the great thing about it.
I kind of have two questions that I'm not sure which one I want to ask. There's like kind of fork in the road here. I'm gonna start with this one. You train a lot of people, and I know there's a physicality to it, but also, how do you know if someone has that is going to be successful when you look at someone that you're training, guy or girl? Is it just based on how well they could do their moves, or do you look at sort of like, oh, this guy's very charismatic, or or can it hinder a guy if all he is charisma, but he can't do a headbutt or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that anybody can ever.
I lost your mic.
I apologize. I muted myself there.
That's fine.
Anyway, I don't think you can look at anyone and say, boy, this guy's going to be a success, because you don't know. Daniel Bryan is a small guy. Daniel Bryan was never going to be a star in WWE. Oh, wait a minute. the fans, the audience deemed him a star. They got behind this guy organically. And 70,000 people at WrestleMania are having their hands in the air going, yes, yes, yes. So he was not picked to be a star, but every time he would go out and have a match, the fans would react. The audience, the public, the paying public would react. So I think that goes back to the promoters, not again in music, wrestling, any business, to listening and have their ear to the ground and see what's going on. And they have marketing research and they have all these other tools they can look at and learn from. I don't think anybody could look at somebody. Example, The Rock. My goodness. Great personality, a smart ass, but in a good way. You know what I mean? One of those entertaining smart asses, one of those people you can have a conversation with and he can joke around and you can enjoy it. But if you looked at him from the beginning, you would say, yes, he's got the size, he's got the charisma, he's got the talent. But does he have that star quality, that intangible it factor? Yeah. Well, he's proved that he does. Yeah. And he's proved that he's probably the most recognizable name, or at least celebrity, on the planet. So you don't know until you give someone the opportunity or they just seize the opportunity. You can't just sit back and wait for someone to give you a chance. You have to make it happen. And you're going to ruffle feathers sometimes. You got to go down and, cause a stir and the squeaky wheel gets the grease type thing. Yeah. But you got to have confidence. You also have to have talent. You got to believe in yourself. So I don't know that you can look at someone and say, man, we've looked at a lot of people and say, that guy's got talent. That guy's got it. He's going to be a star. And he fizzles down the drain quicker than whatever you can imagine. Yeah. And Steve Austin, again, Stone Cold Steve Austin came to WWE as the ringmaster. And he found his identity. This is what I tell people all the time.
And speaking of themes, that theme for the Ringmaster was just like a haunted house thing right before it became whatever. Yeah.
Right. But I tell people to watch documentaries, listen to promos. David Lee Roth is one of the guys I point to and say he knows sound bites. He knows what people want to hear. He knows how to be that guy. But he's also a businessman. And I've heard other promos and interviews with him where he's talking in his businessman mode. And he's not a dumb guy. He did the programs. He did all the stuff, most of the stuff for Van Halen. He did a lot of that stuff. He was creative. And if you could listen to him talk, if you could listen to the rap, not everything was great, but it's like mining for gold. You go down to the river and you go pan and you may come out with some rocks. You may come out with some dirt, but then you might find a couple nuggets in there. So if you go to YouTube and you go to some of these things and listen to the promos, you're not going to hear everything, and you're not going to want to repeat everything, but you might hear a line in there. There's not too much distance between a pat on the back and a kick in the ass. Oh my God! I thought, wow, that's true. But I heard that on a promo one time. I said, God Almighty, that's brilliant because it's true. Do you give encouragement or do you say, no, man, you need somebody to light a fire under you? So listen to promos and listen to, and watch guys and people from the past. What's old will be new again. You can make it your own. Just put a little spin on it, man. So that's part of the creative process, and that's part of the performer's ego, and that's part of the thing that makes or breaks a lot of performers. Just taking something old and make it yours, make it new.
You just started talking about the promos, and for those people that are listening that are not sure what a promo is, it's when I think we all know the wrestler holding the mic, kind of screaming into it, yelling at the opponent. And it's funny, I think this is such a cultural, like a very important cultural phenomena. When I was a kid, I was sort of a shy kid, but we would always play wrestle, and we would always like pretend we were like cutting promos on each other, right? And I think even though I never made it to the WWF or whatever, I think doing that in a younger age and trying to imitate these larger than life people really helped me get out of my shell a bit. And then when I had to go find a job or whatever, right, I was less shy than I was previous. I'm wondering, can you explain the art of the promo? Can you explain how you cut a good promo, as they say?
Authenticity. If you don't believe it, nobody else will believe it. You've got to tell a story, something people are interested in. Jake Roberts was one of the greatest storytellers of all time. Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, yes. He says he's like, I'll put a seed in your hand and fear will grow like a seed. It was like, holy cow, who's this guy?
Yeah, but that's how you do it. Is you practice, you listen to different people talk. You listen to different things. They may call you a champ for short, but not for long. And I thought again, oh my God, that's great. That's brilliant. But it's simple things like that. Dusty Rhodes could tell you a great story and get you interested. And you got to listen to this guy. Even though he didn't look like the athlete of the day, he would tell you a story and get you hooked to listen to what he's saying. It's not always what he's saying. It's how he says what he says. And that's the key. You got to say it authentically. You've got to believe it. And you've also got to draw people in. Why would they want to watch you? What do you have to offer? Again, Jake would say things like, if it was a plane, you'd be the passenger, I'd be the pilot. And he keeps going with these things and these analogies and the realism of the promo. You have to have some truth mixed in with fiction. At the same time, you've got to make it where people really care, because not everybody cares about you just going and beating somebody up. But if you say it with these metaphors or these analogies, whatever you want to call them, again, even if you're not a hardcore wrestling fan, you'll say, who is this guy? Going back to rock and roll, Marilyn Manson, I mean, that's theatrics, that's wrestling, that's the whole thing. Wrapped up, and he knows what to say, but then when he does promos, he's so shy and demure and all that stuff. Yeah. Dude, man, that's not the Marilyn Manson I want to see. I want to hear a weird guy. I want the extraordinary. We can see dogs and cats all day. I want lions, tigers, and bears in my entertainment. Even if you're not presented as such, man. I don't care what you do when nobody else sees. Yeah. I don't care, man. I like to see how the trick is done. At the same time, I appreciate someone going out there and not breaking character. Don't tell me you're a regular person. I don't want to hear. I don't want to know that. Yeah. Real quick, there's a group called the Blue Man Group. You ever heard of them?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I saw them live on Broadway, man. My wife got tickets, and because these guys are phenomenal. They never missed a beat. Everything they did was right on, professional. That's because they practice. You don't practice until you get it right. You practice until you can't get it wrong. And
wow, that's a really good line. That's a really good line.
Yeah. I stole it from Nick Saban, man, coach of Alabama. Okay. But it's true, and I got that on the wall too. Don't just do it. Hey, we got it right. No, do it until it's second nature to you. Do it until you can't do it any other way except the right way. So the only way. So those guys practice. I read something the other day. It's like 5% of what we do is performing. The other is practicing. So you're practicing more than you're actually performing. Yeah. The game means more than the practice, but really the practice means just as much, if not more, than the game. Yeah. So you got to be that good to be that great, I guess. And if that makes any sense whatsoever, it's just you can't go out on stage if you're not prepared. You can't get in the ring if you're not prepared. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people do, and it shows. So you want to show everybody that you're not only prepared, but you're over-prepared. You're ready for anything and everything, because if you've ever been in an arena or an experience like this where things are going to go wrong, what do? If you don't know what to do, you're screwed, because you're there in front of 15,000 people. Yeah. Your monitor goes out, your mic goes out, whatever it may be, man. How do you improvise? What do you do? How are you going to feel it? So that's That's a key element that a lot of people don't. A lot of people who never make it don't understand.
It's funny you mentioned. I'm going to throw out another technical term for the audience. It's called a kayfabe, and it's when you sort of keep your persona going. And you mentioned something where it was like you don't want to know if like an artist is a dog or a cat. You want to know if you want to see the lion part. And now in this internet era, I there's bands that I love, and then I go on their Facebook page and I'm just like, man, like I don't want to see you sharing memes. It's sort of breaking the character for me. Can you talk about this idea of keeping kayfabe, I guess, and how, if that is important or if it's not important?
Well, these days everybody knows wrestling is a work. Rob Zombie, I watched some interviews with him too, and he's a pretty normal guy on the promos and the interviews, and I've watched some of his stuff on YouTube performance-wise. I've seen his videos too, or the music videos. I get all that, but Rob Zombie, is a smart guy. And when he comes across some promos, he's a smart guy. You want people to look at that part, and then you see the braids or the whatever it's called, the dreadlocks, whatever the hell. And you look at this guy. He does not look like your average bear. He's keeping this persona as a businessman in the music world or the entertainment world. He writes movies and things like that too. And he knows when to dial it down. He knows when to dial it up. In professional wrestling, it used to be where you're working in an area, a regional area, and people would know you if you went out and were in public.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that was very important. People didn't see you as one of them. They had to see you as something extraordinary or at least different. And that was called kayfabe, when you go out and be yourself. Terry Funk is a great example of a guy who never broke kayfabe. Even in the locker room sometimes, he was having such a great time. And this is what I tell people, again, with our school, JPWA. You have the volume turned up, and you need to know and you need to learn how to have fun, but you also need to know how to be a pro. And I cut promos on people all the time. I don't worry if they like me. I worry if I'm going to like them. And that's the attitude I've kind of adopted too. So I'm in control. And even if I'm not, I'm still, in my head, I'm in control. And that's kayfabe, because I will say the most outrageous things to get a reaction, just because I know I can. And I'll take them down that road as long as I can until they go, oh, now I see what you're doing, because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Some of the things you say, but that's kayfabe, because they don't know if I'm insane or not. For the record, I am insane, but I love it. No, Terry Funk was insane, but he's crazy like a fox, because he knows what road he's taking you down, and he's just waiting to see how far you'll go before you run out of gas, or before you have to stop somewhere and go, wait a minute, wait. Are you ribbing me or what? And then you don't know. That's kayfabe. You don't know what is and what isn't. That's the problem a lot of people do these days, is they want to be normal, but they want to be special. No, man, if you're going to cut a promo, or if you're going to be on a podcast, or you're going to be on a show, whatever it may be, have something to say. Have a story to tell.
Yeah. You have to commit.
You got to commit. Yeah. You got to commit. And I believe professional wrestling there's a lot to it. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a method to what we do. You have to learn how to fall properly so you don't kill yourself. It's a dangerous business. It is sports entertainment. But at the same time, you're actually falling down on a mat. It's not a trampoline. The ropes aren't rubber bands. And you have to learn how to hit them. You have to learn how to fall. All these elements are taking place. And a lot of people come in with just the fact that, all I have to do is know some stunts, and all I have to do is go out there and scream and yell. That's not it. There's a lot more to it. And I think there's a lot of things that are missing today in professional wrestling, but it's the culture we find ourselves in. It's a different time, different era, and life changes. The world changes. We have to adapt. We have to move on. But the kayfabe part of it is pretty much, I don't know why, but everybody wants to be either loved or accepted. And you got social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all these platforms for people to go out and tell everything about themselves. Where's the mystery? Where's the intrigue?
Yeah, exactly.
We didn't find out about Elvis until Elvis was dead, but you looked at Elvis in his later years, and I had an idea something might have been a little bit off. But, same thing. Going back to David Lee Roth, he talks a great game. Who knows what's fact and what's fiction? Doesn't matter. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. And that's the way Dave was. That's the way a lot of people are. Some people don't know how to do that. Some people don't know how to weave in and out. And that's part of the kayfabe. I don't think I'm all over the place, but I watched an interview with David Lee Roth, and this girl asked him about something about Eddie Van Halen. I could see the look in his face. And then they just cut away, came back, and she said, "Thank you for being here. I appreciate it." And then we never addressed the question because you could see the look like, "Did you really say that to me?" And they cut. "Thank you for being here today. This is Fernum Snabitz. Goodbye. Love you. Hell, go." So, life's a work. It's how you present yourself wherever it's like.
For sure. We go day to day in our own sort of kayfabe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're doing like you said, a job interview earlier, the guy's asking you questions. He's feeling you out. He just wants to see how you're going to act. We're all on our best behavior in the first day, but always go to work like it's the first day, and always put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
Bust your ass, and people will notice it. Trust me. Hard work is there's no substitute. There is no substitute. And I truly believe this with all my heart, man. And looking back on my life, I've seen how this applied. I've seen where I messed up. I have seen where I've made horrendous mistakes. But I believe there's three kinds of people in this world. Those who try, and when they don't make it, they say, "At least I tried." Those that give it their best shot, and when they don't make it, they say, "At least I give it my best shot." And then those who say, "Whatever it takes. I want this so bad, whatever it takes. If I have to get up at 3 a.m. to travel, to get to a town and set up a ring and hang around all day and do what I need to do to be there at night," you're going to have 18, 20-hour days. And people don't understand that. How can you have an 18, 20-hour day? Follow me. I'll show you. So some people say they want it. Some people say they'll do whatever it takes until it comes time to go, "Oh, you mean I have to go 400 miles? Oh, to get an opportunity. I'm not so sure." Well, you don't know where that opportunity will take you. You don't know who's going to be at that show. You don't know who's going to walk in and might see it or listen to the crowd and see what's going on. Nobody knows. So in the beginning especially, you're looking for opportunities. You're looking for a break, or you just want to go out and perform. You just want to go play coffee shops. That's cool too,
Yeah.
But you got to believe it no matter where you go.
That's a great way to look at the whole kayfabe. It's strictly a wrestling term, but I think it's a good term to kind of apply to other things, especially in music, like with Rob Zombie. I think you're totally right. He is keeping a type of kayfabe. He looks the way he looks. He's not changing, but he knows how to talk when he needs to talk. He knows how to convey a message when he needs to convey a message. But he knows how to be crazy when he needs to be crazy. Yeah. You mentioned, Dr. Tom, I don't want to take up all your time, so I'm gonna wrap up my questions here. Thank you so much for coming on. This is awesome. You mentioned Terry Funk, and you're talking about extremes. And I mean, if anybody wants to doubt the legitimacy of, like, if you could get hurt, I remember watching a Born to Be Wired with Terry Funk versus Sabu and ECW and being like, holy crap. Like, especially at the time, you get this bootleg on a VHS from the internet somewhere, and you're just, this is not the take your vitamins, style of wrestling I've seen. How important is it to sort of play off of extremes? I think you kind of touched on it a bit, but even when you have the bad guy person versus the good guy person, you know, I've seen some promos where during the Cold War, you know, the Nikolai talking about dropping a nuclear bomb on the United States is going to go back to Russia, like really saying some really extreme stuff. I'm curious I'm curious what your thoughts are going to the extreme, and can you go too far in the extreme?
All right. Do we have a little time? Just give me 5. Give me 3 minutes.
Oh yeah. It's all yours.
Okay, here we go. So when I was a kid growing up, this was 20 years after World War II. And I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and there were these 2 huge, bald German guys called the Von Brauners, Kurt and Karl von Brauner, and they had the Iron Cross on their tights and the swastikas, and again, this is 20 years. Now, to put in perspective, 20 years, it's a long time, but in reality, it's not that long. It's a short span.
Yeah. And
especially after World War II. So these 2 big bald Germans had a manager, and his name was Gentleman Saul Weingroff. So you had 2 German Nazis being managed by this little weaselly Jewish fella. After World War II, there was incredible heat. Incredible. And I didn't understand it as a kid. But then I look back on it and the audacity to go out there and talk about, there was another German guy named Waldo von Erich, and he said on a promo, and they almost got kicked off the air for this promo. Waldo was was being interviewed.
Uh-oh.
Now, this is in the 60s. Have you heard this?
We don't need to go over it. Yeah, but I know where it's going. Yeah.
This was the kind of stuff they would say. This is the kind of stuff they would do.
Yeah.
That crossing the line? I don't know, but it was pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And people got into it. So what is crossing the line?
I don't think you'd see that today. I know that's like a term that people play. I don't think Vince would be like, "Oh, here's Al Qaeda."
No. Yeah. And you wouldn't be smart to do that. But we even just watched an interview with Jerry Lawler and handsome Jimmy Valiant, and Lawler said some things that today he would be thrown off the air for. He would be canceled. This is live on television in Memphis, Tennessee. So. You have to know your perimeters. You have to know your boundaries, obviously, for the entertainment world. But a lot of people
took it to the extreme.
Well, that too. But you don't know where the line is until you cross it and you're way past it. So
you look at a lot of the band, like you look at Nirvana or even like David Bowie. Like these guys went against the grain, and they took heat, as they say in the industry, and went and did extreme things. That I think if they didn't put themselves out there and if they didn't take a chance to be hated, even Marilyn Manson in the late 90s, like that guy was like the most hated person in America. Yeah.
Well, yeah, at one time, but I'm going to go back even to the 60s and 70s with the Doors and Jim Morrison. This guy, nobody really knew about him, but they knew he was just high all the time. Okay, but it wasn't just smoking pot. That was the culture, and that was the band, and that was, nobody saw behind the scenes of what Jim was doing. Jim, like I know him personally. Jim Morrison was doing him, but those were the kind of people that were intriguing. Those are the kind of people that you go, whoa, he's different, man. What is it that makes him tick? But they didn't let you in on that because you didn't have social media. You didn't have all these things to find out the personal side. So they could be mysterious and they could be a little bit standoffish and step back and say, no, man. I'm standing on this rock over here. You stand down there by the river, man. Yeah. We're standing on 2 different planes. Even if they weren't. That was the image, that was the perception, and that was the confidence and the level of gravitas that Jim Morrison had. So look all the way back. Don't just stop at the 80s and 90s. There's stuff that came way before that people have stolen for the 90s. So
and it's the sometimes to be the villain is the part that's supposed to be the entertaining aspect of it. And you're talking
Everybody loves a bad guy, man. The bad guys are a lot more interesting than the good guys sometimes, because the good guys are sometimes the bad guys, and you got to figure that out. Then you go, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, John Wayne Gacy was a clown, but he also was visited with presidents and all these great politicians. But oh my God,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Dr. Tom, thank you so much. I have one last question, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure.
Okay. How the microphones, they put the microphones underneath the ring, right? Sometimes. Is that...
Not anymore, yeah. I think they don't want noise these days.
Okay. So it's like I know this is kind of a sound question, but I just kind of want to try to get one for the... Can you sort of explain how you set up the ring, and if there's like acoustic things or anything like that you have to consider, or...
Well, I think at one time, at one period, I believe the thought process was, let's mic the ring so the bumps sound bigger and louder, obviously. But these days, with TV and production and the other elements in the arena with the lights, the music, and other distractions with commentary, the last discussion I had about this, we actually did have a discussion about this, maybe earlier this year, and they're not miking the rings like they used to, and they don't really want a lot of the bumping sounds going on right now. For whatever reason, I didn't ask why, but we had talked about it, because one of the roles we do, you have to slap the mat. They don't teach that anymore. They don't want you to slap the mat because it's distracting, I guess. That's just my assumption. So, but they used to mic the ring just to make it sound bigger, louder, and that was what they were going for back then. But today's changed.
Awesome. Thank Dr. Tom Prichard. I totally appreciate it. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. Before you go, can you plug your socials and possibly where can people find your book, and if they want to know more about JPWA?
All right, very cool, man. Well, listen, if you're looking to train in professional wrestling, you just want to look at a cool website, our website is jpwrestlingacademy.com, and on the front page you have a place where you can go and order my curriculum. It's called A Complete 1-Year Training Curriculum and Guide for Beginners and Seasoned Pros, and this is actually something that we did for the developmental system in Florida, Tampa, Florida Championship Wrestling. And they wanted a 1-year curriculum. I kept stalling, putting it off.
What's
Finally,
the developmental? What's that? What does that mean? Like before they go to
it's like your AAA ball or AA ball, something like that. You're going to learn. And that's what NXT was supposed to be. And then they put them on national TV and pretty much just flushed everybody down. No, I won't say that. Developmental is where you're going to learn your craft in a small place where you're kind of hidden, and you get an opportunity to learn how to do TV, work the hard camera, and do the technical stuff in a developmental system. It was like our farm team.
Okay, gotcha.
And NXT was derived from FCW in Ohio Valley Wrestling in Louisville and the Heartland Wrestling Association in Cincinnati. So that was what they wanted. They wanted a start to finish, 1 year start to finish. And I tried to explain, that's not the way you do this. This is a feeling business. This is an artist. This is a creativity thing. And this is an art form. It's not something you learn A, B, C, D, E. The problem today is a lot of people learning A, B, C, D, E. And if you mess up at C, you don't know how to get to E, because your moves have all chained together in this pattern. And if you deviate from that, you're lost. Again, it goes back to, don't do it until you get it right. Do it until you can't get it wrong. It's a natural thing. It's a feeling thing, because not everything's going to go perfect. But jpwrestlingacademy.com has all the information about our school in Knoxville, Tennessee. Beautiful place to come and hang out for about 12 weeks. And we have the next date of our class that will be starting up in 2022. I'm right on the going to begin the 4th week of our last class in 2021. And on January 3rd, we start our 2022 sessions, and we have 4 sessions next year. 3 of them go 12 weeks, and the last one goes 10 weeks. So, but it has all the information on our website. You can also check me out on Twitter at Dr. Tom Prichard. I'm on Facebook as Tom Prichard, and our Facebook with JPWA is Jacobs Prichard Wrestling Academy. So if you're interested in wrestling, or if you're interested in just checking it out and going for the experience, I've understood that now. A lot of people come in and just want to go through it and see what it's like to fall on a wrestling ring and see what it's like to hit the ropes. And some stay, and some leave after the second week. Some leave after the first day.
Is there an age restriction? Like I'm nearing 40. Is it too late for me?
Well, I'm telling you, man. When you get to your late 20s, it's getting a little bit late because it's a young man's game, and it takes usually anywhere from 3 to 5 years to really get this down to understanding what we're doing. There's a lot of nuances. And a lot of things that you can't just say, when this happens, you do this. Because when that happens, you might not be in the position to do what we ask you to do. So you have to know what to do at any time, any place in the match, and feel it. It's natural. It's a reaction. You talked earlier about screwing up a song or doing something like that. Man, no, you just move on. You don't let anybody know you messed up. Nobody in an arena having a good time, listening to music, I don't think they're going to miss one chord unless it's just that obvious and you're that terrible. Yeah. Same thing in wrestling. If you guys mess up a spot, if you know how to recover and make it work, no matter where you are in the match, no matter what position you're in, then that's what you do. So anyway, real quick, jpwrestlingacademy.com. Check us out.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Tom. I'm going to end the show, and I'll say goodbye to you in a second. Thanks, everybody, for checking us out, and we'll leave your links in the show notes so people could just to really make sure they don't miss it. All right, bye, everybody.
This program was brought to you by the superwill64.com Entertainment Network. For more great shows, podcasts, and music, please visit superwill64.com.